bit where, you know, that they say America is the army, we're the money, and Rome is the religion. What's your take on that?
Well, Rome is the Catholic Church, but it's not all religion. Because I think even the Catholic Church is Semitic. And so that's kind of the base level that I look at most of our religion, or most Christianity anyway, is that is Semitic first. So at the base level, it's all Semitic. Anything Christian, Islam, Catholicism, Judaism, those are all Semitic.
Can I ask you something else as well? There is a time where women, I don't mean we ruled, but they respected women and put women on pedestals. Is that the Tartarian time?
No.
Because what it is Jeff thinks the Tartarians weren't very nice, didn't you?
Yeah.
That's correct. I think they were communists, basically.
Wow.
Wow, 1 second.
Hard to say for sure. I think everyone, you know, there's always good times and bad in history. You know, you look at the Chinese, and they have this time called Confucius, and Confucius was a good time for China, but Confucius was not even a king or a ruler. He was a philosopher, basically, and he spread this philosophy, this light philosophy that everybody liked and picked up on and became their culture. But he wasn't even a king. So,
Last night when we were talking, though, I did quite, you know, because I was saying to Jeff, how could the Ottoman Empire be there? But actually, they were just an army of theirs.
Yeah, well, it's hard to say. This is all anthropology. This is what anthropologists study. If you found an anthropologist that was an expert on the Ottoman Empire, they might be able to tell you a little bit more.
So what have you learnt today on anthropology, then?
Hard to say. Just kind of, you know, how they get involved with the practical, this sort of corporate world that I was looking at. Some newer ways of how, if you got a job, if you went and studied to be an anthropologist, what kind of jobs or careers are you looking at? And most of it's corporate and marketing and stuff like that, or government, which is just. But they do good things with government, right? Sometimes they testify for people in court and as a defense, and on, you know, what people are actually capable of doing and how the brain works and stuff like that. Whereas,
What's your take on the American flag? You know that there's two American flags. There's the one that's there now, which means that we're at war, and then the older flag was pastel colours.
No, so I know a fair.
So that's not real either.
I know a little bit, but a fair bit, and somebody might know more than me, but this is what I know. So the current flag today is the Star-Spangled Banner. Okay, and the former one was called the Betsy Ross, and the Betsy Ross just had the circle on it. And before that, it was called, they had different flags, the Confederate flag, and one of them was called Bars and Stars, and the other one was the Rebel Yell. But other than that, they've changed some of the stripes. Some of them are black now on the Star Spangled Banner, and they have black flags with white stripes, and some maybe one blue and one green sometimes, and that's for law enforcement. The single black with the black flag, it's a law enforcement thing. But black in a flag is not good. That's the problem. That's what they don't understand. Black in a flag is for heavenly bodies known as Sable. And the heavenly body for Sable is the planet Saturn, and I'm going to have to commit to Saturn being the god Satan in our past. So black in a flag is not good. It represents pirates and criminals and that kind of stuff.
Amy and I found another one, didn't we, Amy? We found that there's another sort of governing body. What was that one called? I've forgotten. It's even got its own flag.
Yeah, I think it was called Allied States of America, something like that. We weren't sure what to make of it.
Sure, well, you can make flags, but flags are heraldry. So when you're dealing with flags, if you look and learn what the rules of heraldry are, then you can understand what's going on. If you look up something called tinctures and just find it on Wikipedia, the colors of heraldry, and they'll actually tell you what they mean. And you can look up things like lion in heraldry, and they'll get the Wikipedia page just on lion and how to present lion and what the meanings are in the different positions in heraldry. And then you can make a flag. But you can't do it. You can't just make a flag if you don't follow the rules of heraldry, because somebody will get pissed off. One of the royals will come and bury you or something like that. You can make them for fun, but not for seriousness. That's royalty stuff. That's high nobility. They don't mess around with that stuff.
Yeah, it's actually called United Allied States. And
they're governing, aren't they? They have certain areas in America. It's not just America, it's Africa as well.
Yeah, I mean, you can Google and read about it. It's very strange.
But they're supposed to be electing a president, and you can't see who anything is, so it's all a bit weird, really.
Yeah.
This Allied States, but they've actually got parts of America in it.
I don't know about this.
Yeah, it's crazy.
We can't pin any history. We can't pin it, can you? Because we don't know if lots of it's not real.
I know.
Well, that's why you study anthropology and archaeology. You can put stuff together. If you, like, yeah, what do I don't know.
What do you make of our flag, then? United Kingdom.
I told you this yesterday. We went over this, actually. So
Yeah.
England is the cross of St. George. Remember?
Yeah, and that's got the griffin in it. Mm.
No, there's no griffin. The griffin.
No, but it links with the griffin.
Remember the Russian flag? The Russian royal crest is the St. George as well. So Russia we connected to the flag of England through the heraldry, because the royal crest of Russia has St. George on it, which is the English flag, which is that red cross on the white background. That's St. George. So they're basically showing you the same thing in different ways.
And also, what did you tell me about Queen Victoria's grandson? Or a son?
Well, Wilhelm, you were telling me that the Tsar of Russia was a member
Amy, don't
of
message him right now.
Yeah.
Don't message her right now. Just leave it for a minute. Sorry, carry on.
Okay.
Just for a minute.
Said that Wilhelm II was the Kaiser of Germany at the particular time right before World War I. For the entire World War I, actually. He was the Kaiser of Germany for World War I.
Did you hear that, Amy?
Yes.
What I was telling Jeff, that I felt that Queen Victoria's grandson was the Tsar of Russia. But not just that, when we broke the footage down, you can see he almost looks Middle Eastern. He does not look white, Caucasian, and please stop.
It's not me.
Yeah, I know, it's brilliant. Anyway, yeah, so you can see that he's kind of like a black man in certain bits. Amy knows, because I broke it down, didn't I, Amy?
Right, that's right.
You can see that. And then you were saying that, I've lost thread now because all the pinging.
I think you might have that guy mixed up, because I don't remember.
If you look at him, the Tsar of Russia looks just like the Queen Victoria's grandson.
Well,
but what it was is, you told me, what got me was that Jeff said that the royal family has other colours in their other, what do you call it, other bloodlines in their stock. And I thought that myself, because when you look at Queen Victoria's son, one of them, one that became king, he almost looks like an Indian. He's got.
Possibly, yeah. They're all Aryans. Yeah, I would say so.
Just explain that to Amy, because Amy hasn't heard that.
Yeah, well, apparently Queen Elizabeth says that she is a blood descendant of the Prophet Muhammad from Islam. And so all these Aryans that migrated early, like 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 BC, are related to the Queen, and they just migrated north, south, east, and west, and basically spread the Aryan race all over the world.
Is that the Tartary bit in there still?
Yeah, and that's how Tartary became, because they just came out of Persia.
And also, you said Tartarian, Tartar, they're all different parts of it.
Yeah, I would think so. Similar, only different.
Yeah. Well,
I've had to tell you last night, we as a group, a few years ago, especially as there's the wall in China, there is a wall that goes across the world. Did you know that?
A what? A wall? Great Wall of China?
Somebody in the group, artist at the time, he found bits of it dotted all over the world.
Right.
I wondered what that meant.
Because three.
Pardon?
Did you know that Israel currently has 3 border walls up?
This was a brick wall.
3. Yeah, I know. But Israel's they have barbed wire. They're concrete. They're stronger.
But we talked about that last night. They're in on it too, aren't they? They're lying.
Yeah, Israel's really bad. They have 3 up. Nobody barely even knows they have 3. Not 1, not 2, but 3.
Well, any country that's got HARP is in on it, although it does seem to miss Africa for some reason. But it still goes over Africa, it's just they haven't got a facility there. Well, they didn't when they made the HARP map. But anybody who's got HARP is one of them.
I guess. I don't know too much of the story about Africa, what happened. There's no resources there, really. They seem to leave it. It's just a big slave country. There's so many black people there. It's just all slave. They make them all slaves. It's all controlled by the military.
Well.
Except South Africa. And South Africa has all kinds of those stone circles, but it's really racist too, right? It's all white people. So they must be all high-born Aryans as well. And they just hold everyone in South Africa slaves. And, South Africa's full of those stone circles, like Stonehenge. There's hundreds of them.
Really?
They're all in ruin. They're just all in ruins. You can see them on, scans and stuff like that. Not like Stonehenge, where they're above ground still. They're just all ruins.
In fact, I need to go on a map because, so many weeks ago I went down to Cornwall and out of the train window I could see a pyramid. Can't mistake a pyramid. I saw it and I thought, I must remember, but I had a different journey home, so in time and everything, so I wasn't looking for it that when I was coming back.
Yeah. Well, things become normal too, right? And that's the problem, is that you don't know if somebody's just building something because they want to make a pyramid. I mean, it might not have anything to do with anything other than that.
Well, Brian Forrester reckons that half of Egypt's underground.
Yeah, possibly. It was all buried before. They excavated the pyramids. They excavated the Sphinx. It was all covered up with sand and dirt before. They had to unbury it before, so we can see it today. So there could be more, for sure.
There's loads of underground cities. I just wonder where that came in. And why were we living underground?
Yeah, well, if we
you've got no windows or anything.
I mean, if we had a mud flood and it turned to earth and these buildings are all covered up, and why is there deserts full of sand? Was that a mud flood and it just dried up really quick, or was it what? Why do we have deserts?
Yeah, that's a good point. Also, we touched on that last night, that I asked you, did you think that the buildings had sunk? And you said no, they just built around them.
Well, I think they got covered up by earth somehow, possibly.
Oh, yes. You were telling me about out in the Middle East, they have these things on the churches, and They are natural lights.
Oh, they have one of those. That's not in the Middle East. That's in China.
Mm.
The atmospheric energy, yeah, that's just really, really rare, though. That's like a 1 in a million.
Do you think there was more of those? And because what I think, do you think probably what happened is that man thinks that he's so clever. Man thinks he's God and can mess around with everything. They messed around with things and they caused mud floods to happen.
I don't know, possible, yeah.
Not now, the Tartarians messing around. And that's maybe why the Americans and the English then took them over. I mean, that's blown my mind when me and Amy saw that video. I mean, I know it's not new to you, but when we realised that, Independence Day isn't Independence Day like we think. It's them being independent from the Tartarians.
Yeah.
But I still think we're the baddies. Because if we were the goodies, we'd have told the truth. We'd have said, we conquered the Tartarians, and they don't. They've wiped them out as if they don't exist. Except old maps and, like I was looking up those, what are they called? Fabergé eggs? I mean, they're amazing.
Yes.
I mean, they can be worth millions.
Yeah, to the right person.
You know what I'm talking about, don't you?
Oh, I found that thing. Here, I'll see if I can send it to you.
It's just I always think that, when we get people together, we're all like a jigsaw puzzle. We're all parts of that puzzle. But then we get to this, and there's another puzzle called history, with bits missing from it. And I think life's just full of puzzles with pieces in it. And we've got loads of the bits missing, so we can't put it all together properly.
That's what the study of anthropology does. That clears up.
Yeah, but you can't say whether it's 200 years ago, 1,000 years ago. You just have an assumption that it happened, but you don't know when.
Well, sometimes you can do that when you study anthropology.
So what's your aim then? You just want to find out more information?
You gotta have the basis in order to see things, right? So if you can't just go, sometimes it's not in a book. And you have to go and walk and figure it out and measure and look and learn and test things out to say, does this work or doesn't it work? So it's a path. It's a trial and error, a lot of it. Does this fit? So you get these pieces. It's like a puzzle, and you get all the pieces together, and some of them fit and some of them don't. But you have to find out which pieces go together to make the right picture, and then be able to read the picture. It's always a 2-part thing or a 3-part thing,
Do you want me to send you that hangout that we had with Stan when he's showing you that all the big monasteries used to have, well, what he's saying is they had big wheels in them and they were looking at the stars. And then the churches took over them and made them into churches, and sometimes half of it's buried underground, and when you take that away, you realise the building's almost like twice as big as it was. Thank you.
Well, they cloak things, yeah. Yeah, you can send me whatever you want.
Because we have these castles which we call medieval, but are they medieval? But they're a different time to the pillared ones. But then there was a set of castles which all collapsed almost at the same time. They're all in ruins, and then other castles aren't.
Well, castles were made of stone a lot of times. And so they needed stone masons. It's about the technology that they knew about how to build buildings and how to make things and what they made them out of. And today we make them out of steel and concrete, and that's why they get so much higher. That's the whole thing. It's just they went higher. Then they can't do that with stone or brick. They need steel and concrete to go higher.
Well, I had this talk with Marie Wheatley, and what it is, like we've got Silbury Hill up the road and then Merlin's Mound. I was telling you that. But then what I noticed was a lot of the big old castles, so that's Dover Castle, Windsor Castle, I think Leeds Castle, other castles around the country, they've got mounds in them. She said, well, no, that's a different era. But I'm thinking, really? They just look like pyramids in the castles. And because pyramids have energy, she said no, they were built on purpose so that they could see outside from the inside. From their earth mound.
I'd have to see it.
But they specifically have these mounds, and these mounds look like pyramids. I did video on it.
Made out of what?
Well, they're made out of earth, because, I mean, like, Silbury Hill's got earth on it, although it's chalk. Obviously, if you went to Egypt, they'd be stone, but the one in Silbury is one of the oldest ones.
Yeah.
I'm wondering whether that's why England's quite important, because we house the oldest pyramids here. It's not Egypt, it's here. And they weren't made in brick. They were made in you know, out of the ground. So whatever the ground was, so chalk and clays and whatever it was, whatever earth it was, they made it out of that.
No, I think the technology they would have had to make pyramids would have come from Egypt.
Right. Well, they all think that the one in Silbury Hill is one of the oldest ones. And right, Silbury Hill has got the stone circle, it's got long barrows, which Marie Wheatley has been investigating this, because obviously Brian Forrester looks into the elongated headed people, which also are in Egypt as well.
Well, the Norse did burial mounds for sure as well, and so we have in northern, like Ireland, and there's a lot of Norse burial grounds. I forget what they're called. There's a specific name that the Norse had for them, and they are around. They're these mounds, and they're burial mounds for people.
But the thing is, me and Maria Wheatley a few weeks, well, probably a couple of months ago now, we went to one, and I didn't realise wherever there's army bases, there's going to be hidden things that they're keeping away from us. So basically, you can go to this long barrow when the flags are down. If the flags are up, don't go, because they're shooting and doing all sorts of things. So you risk your own life if you go in for that. But this long barrows, right, there's one at Silbury Hill. But this one was twice as long, and the record she found was that there was a high priestess in there. But there are more long barrows around, and the elongated headed people came before we did. Do you think they're the Tartaries? Although the elongated headed people weren't really tall, they were quite short.
I don't know about these elongated headed people, man. I'm not big on the alien thing. I think it's all religion.
Well, they're not alien, but they're just a slightly different species to us.
Oh yeah.
I mean, Brian Forrester said they were subhuman, but Maria Wheatley says, well, I don't like that, because that's saying that they're not good, and they are. They're just another species. That's how she puts it.
I don't think so. If there's any of these elongated skulls, then there's only a few of them, like a handful, maybe 5 at the most, and that's not a culture. That is not a species. 5 people. It sounds like a myth to me. It
could be the Egyptians, because they had elongated head.
Did they? I don't think they did. They were human. I don't know. It's hard to say. Maybe
well, these people are supposed to have extra chakras in there. They've got extra chakras.
Yeah, I don't know. That's religion. Chakra and all that. That's spirituality. That's religion. That's Hindu. So what's Tartaria then? People, Hindus, some of the gods in Hindu have 6 arms, and some of the gods in Hindu have elephant trunks. And they have crazy stuff in religion that never existed, trust me. It's all metaphorically speaking.
So, in your take then, when do you think Tartaria was in our timeline then?
You can look it up. You can look that up. It's called Tartary. You want me to look it up? Hold on a sec. And you can find out where it was too. Actually, you can see a map of it.
Really?
So you want it? Yeah.
So don't put Tartaria. You put Tartary.
Yeah, Tatary.
They're the Tartars.
No, they're the Tartarians.
Right. Gets a bit confusing here, because Tartaria is this sort of, to me, I think I call most of it Tartaria, because it's this unknown history. I mean, Amy will tell you very quickly, because while you're looking that up, when we looked up,
listen.
All right, you do your bit first.
Tartary and Tartaria are the same place. It's actually called Tartary officially. Tartaria is another name for it, but it's officially called Tartary. And that's where the Tartarians come from, is Tartary. So Tartaria, I don't even know if it technically ever really existed as a place or not. Tartary was. That's where Tartarians come from. It's Tartary.
Sounds like tortury, doesn't it? Torture.
The map of it, it rates southern border of Russia and northern border of China, and it says here Chinese Tartary violent in 1808, so it gives you some dates. So it's around 17th, 18th century.
And why do you think that they were communist?
Because they're Semitic, for one. And the Mongols were pretty rough people, and the Russians are also fairly communistic after the Tartarian Empire. So that's probably how Russia got to be communist, and that's how China got to be communist, was from the Tartarians, or the Aryans before them.
Right. And what time scale are you looking at?
For what?
For these Tartaries.
They were around in the 1800s.
Oh, right, not the 1500s then, 1800s. Oh, that makes sense then to why I was telling you Queen Victoria passed over to a government. She was one of the last Tartaries.
More or less, yeah. She's an Aryan, yeah, Tartarian, sure, yeah. And the Tartarians use a lot of dragons for their heraldry, and Prince Charles uses a dragon for Wales. Wales has a dragon on it, the flag of Wales, and that's Prince Charles is the Prince of Wales.
He's not the Prince of Tartary, is he?
Actually, Robert Zephyr does a really good thing on the dragon bloodline too, but I guess you can't watch Robert Zephyr. That's kind of weird.
Well, that doesn't mean all his videos are blocked, but those ones are in this country for some reason. I sent you the screenshot of it, didn't I?
Yeah.
What was it? That the reason that I made a video which I made a while ago, but I put it out on Sun and Moon a week ago or something, whenever it was, that basically Greenland it was Queen Elizabeth I, and they were showing these maps, and they showed Greenland was the size of the UK, and behind it was the Four Rivers. Thank you, Jeff. Behind it was the Four Rivers. And then actually what they've done now is they've put those two together and they call that Greenland. And the Four Rivers bit is huge. I mean, this bit of land could be the size of Africa. It's an enormous piece of land that none of us know what's on there, although they're showing us it's ice.
Yeah. The problem with map making and even in transferring history is that, we have to record it. And you got to know. So there is possibilities that the land has changed, or there's also possibilities that
how could California be an island? Explain that.
If there was more water, if the water level was higher.
That means there'd have been less land.
Well, the land would be underwater, so it would appear like there was less land. The land would still be there, but it would be under the water if the water was higher.
So where's all that water gone then? To some other part of the place?
Well, it's like a bathtub. If you have to take all the water out of the bathtub for those things.
Yeah, so that means more of the land is showing now. But the maps haven't really changed that much, have they?
See, there are also people who insist that the land was closer together at certain points in time where the ocean was not as vast and there was...
Do you believe in Almeria? Is it Almeria? I mean, I was talking to Trouble the other day, and she said that she's pretty sure that Australia and Malaysia and all that was all linked together once.
Maybe. I mean, there are people who talk about this lost city of Atlantis as another big one.
That's supposed to be off England.
Yeah. So it's all sketchy until somebody finds some better evidence on Atlantis, because I don't know. I can't answer that question. I haven't studied Atlantis that much. Robert Zephyr does some studies on Atlantis, and he also does some studies, like people think that there were massive caverns that used to have big civilizations. They used to live literally inside the earth, under the surface of the earth.
There you go.
I don't know about that. I don't even know why you would want to do that, to tell you the truth, but just to hide.
But like you said, if up here was sort of moving around with all the earth moving and swallowing up some of the buildings, then maybe that's why they decided to live underground.
But then you're looking at only small pieces of the world again. The world is a really big place, but it's small in a sense, but it's vast.
Well, in that bit with Queen Elizabeth I, what it was is, I said last night that there was an illegitimate king, Edward IV. Then comes Henry VII, Henry VIII, Elizabeth I. But I asked Amy to go and look it up. And what was it like, Amy? Because I knew what it was like for me.
When you looked up, what was it? When you looked up Edward I?
No, Edward IV it was. Do you remember? And people were taking over. And each video was like a poem. And then this person came along and that person came. They were fighting them and then they were fighting them.
Yes,
and this and that.
Yes,
and anybody said the same thing, did they?
No, it was very confusing. It was all very, very confusing, yes.
And then what I find is that Edward IV was in, he was out, and then he came back later on. And then there was someone else who was in and out. And at that point, the French were running us. It's just there's so much going on in that time period. You can't work it out.
That's right.
I was wondering whether that's maybe... I actually thought that's when we were... Oops, I just flicked something. That was when Tartary happened. But you're not. You're saying it's the 1800s.
Yeah.
That would make such sense.
Yes.
Did they last for very long then?
Don't know. We don't really know.
I reckon it was the middle of the 1700s to the 1830s.
I don't think they ever. I don't. It's just the borders changed, and the states, the government, but the land is still there, and the Aryan race is still around, and all the culture is still here. It never really went away. Just the borders went away. That's all.
Yeah.
And borders are made by governments or kings or whoever's making them. They're imaginary lines. That's all they
Do
are.
you find this whole time thing quite confusing, or you like unraveling it?
Yeah, it's fun. If you want to know what time is, study Sir Sandford Fleming. He was a Canadian, but he was in the Royal Society. And he had this notion of what he called astro time, which is real time, and involved with the planets and the stars and all that, but it doesn't. But we wanted to have some sort of standardized time across the world. So Sir Sandford Fleming was the guy who really did a big push to get the world on standardized time, and that's how we get our time zones of Eastern time and why you're 3 hours behind and stuff like that. He kind of measured all that out.
I'm still wondering whether we are the time difference thing, because we're in the middle anyway, and we're not just that. We've got these pyramids here. It's something. I just can't work it all out there. I'm too tired today to even try and work it out.
Well, study. I'm telling you, you want to know meanings? Study heraldry. And when you're studying heraldry, look up the etymology of the word when you don't know what it is. But I'll send you some stuff on heraldry too. Here, you can breeze through it.
So why do you think they cut Tartary out then?
What, sorry?
Why do you think they cut that time period out then in the 1800s? Why did they cut it out? Because it wasn't Queen Victoria who built that extra half of the palace. It was the Tartarians, or Tartaria. Tartary.
They like to hide everything. They don't like people to know. It's confusing, and if you don't know what it is, then you won't know what the truth is, and you won't find out that they're bad people. It's just that simple. They like the confusion. They want to let you guess. They want your beliefs. They don't want you to know the truth. They want you to believe what they tell you. And the less you know, the more you're going to have to believe.
Do you find that the more you know, the less you know?
No.
No. I find that we know so much information, but you still can't put it all together. And it's not that it's meaningless.
Yeah, so it becomes more relevant that you know less. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Well, not just that. You think you know even more now because you've learnt so much more, but you still can't fit it in, and so you sort of know less because it's bigger now. Because now you've learnt this other stuff. The puzzle gets bigger and bigger, but you've still got nowhere to go, so you know less. You think, oh, when I get that piece of puzzle, that will sort that out. But it doesn't. It just, oh, I've got to add 3 more bits of puzzle to that.
That's right. Yes. And you need to know all the pieces. But that's the fun part. That's exciting. You're like, you think you've got it, and then you're like, oh wow, that's a door. I call that finding a key, opening a door, and then you find out that there's more doors inside, and now you have to go find more keys too. It's like, wow, I got to find all these keys. That's gonna be fun. It's another adventure finding the keys to all these doors that I just found.
Amy, tell Jeff, because he thinks the timeline sort of fits about when Jesus was born and that, but that hangout we had with Trouble when we found that hangout, and those guys are saying that they could only find written history back to the 1100s. Tell Jeff that.
Yes, it was. They said it was only written history they had was back to the 1100s.
And when did they say Jesus was born?
Around, was it 1500?
No, it was the 1100s. I thought it was the 15, but when we listened again, it was the 1100s, and the stars match up and everything.
I don't know about that, because I think there are some Roman empires and stuff that were writing about Jesus. Maybe not in
Yeah, but he wasn't the first man, was he? He was after Noah and Enoch and the rest of them.
Well, but you don't know who's a real man and who's a deity, because I think Jesus is both a real man and a deity. So Jesus is represented by the man Jesus, who was an Essene, who lived in around Jerusalem around the time of the Second Temple, and the Romans wrote about him, and he probably was crucified in around that time period. But the Catholic Church turned him into the Son of God, and the Son refers to the sun. Our planet, the sun, and that's what the Christ refers to as the sun, and the sun cycles around the earth. That's the Son of God.
And what was he?
Jesus.
Yeah. Well, he was who? He wasn't Jesus. It was an H at the front. Jesus.
Well, there's Jehovah, and there's Yeshua, but it's all the same God, and it's all revolves around L. I'll send you L too.
I think this is why they say that we are like gods, because when you start understanding all the stuff, your spiritualness changes, you get a heightened awareness, and you're more in touch with where you live and the people. I'm not saying everybody else is, but you are. And that's maybe why they think about it's Jesus' consciousness. Thank you. Jeff's sending me stuff, Amy. I know that's not you. He's sending me stuff to look at. But to me it makes sense, because there was this big bit about maps were all wrong, and they've added 1,000 years to the maps. They put it was like I something, I-45, whatever it is. But when you make that I into a 1, it turns into the 1400s. Thank you, Jeff. It turns into the 1400s. But it wasn't. It was 400.
Well, I'd have to see it. I don't know.
Well, it just gets talked about in Hangouts quite a bit.
Well, then I recommend you study again anthropology, because that'll show you the cultures, and then you can line up the cultures in a timeline.
So when these Tartaries were there, who else was here then? Romans? Or they were part of it?
No, I don't think the Romans were really around anymore. I think the Norse were gone. The Scandinavians, the Ukrainians were around. The Germanic people were around. There was Chinese. There were Asian people. It's just they were all mixing together. Right?
So what about the pillared buildings then? I mean, you were telling me last night that they would have built them in pillars because it's all to do with Rome and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think it's Semitic. I think it's a pillar of life. They're also You don't think they were using them, like you said? There's that one in China that makes electricity. Maybe that you think it's a one-off. You don't think these buildings were then? I don't know. No, it's hard to say.
But what my feeling is, when I said We went over to America, and they made us. Well, they put everybody into quarantine and took the children, and Hitler was the same. But when they got to America, like say in the 1800s, all these buildings were there.
Well, somebody had to build them.
But they were already there. They didn't have to make them. They were already there. And then sometimes what they did was they had earthquakes or whatever it was to flatten the Tartaria or Tartary.
Like the industrial age. Have you ever heard of the industrial age?
Right.
That started in the 1700s.
Well, see, I struggle a bit because Martin Leakey, he said that they were mapping out the nervous system in the 1700s, which seems impossible with what instruments they'd have had. But they've got drawings of it.
They had lots of stuff. They had, they were making stuff out of steel. They had steam engines, and they had hydraulics, and they had all kinds of stuff. We had what's called the block and tackle too, which is like a crane. What a crane uses, and counterweights with pulleys to lift all kinds of weight without any problems. You can just do it with a block and tackle. It's really old, and they've done this forever. We've had pulleys and stuff forever. I'll send you a block and tackle too.
Jeff's sending me all the information, and you also sent me that hat last night, which I said looked very Turkish.
Yeah. The Shriners.
Obviously, they have those in Turkey with a little thing sticking out the top.
Yeah, it's Middle Eastern. It's Semitic.
And
so, but they're all in the UK. The Royals are all Freemasons, and they're all in on Freemasonry and the Shriners.
Thank you.
Shriners here in Toronto, in Canada. There's a Freemason or a Shriners in almost every small town, and they do go to the little parades, and they go to the little carnivals that the towns have, the fair, and they drive their little go-karts around with their hats on.
So what do you make of the World Trade Fair in 1883 when they had that big wheel which could sit 2,000 people?
Yeah, and then they tore it all down. They build them all up in 3 months, and they make these all elaborate buildings, and then by the end of the year, they're all gone.
Some of those buildings were 9 acres big. I mean, we don't have buildings like that today, probably.
Yeah, I know, and then they tore them all down.
I was actually wondering whether even if Tesla's not real, but the name is used in the history. They used Tesla on it to burn them down. And then they say, oh, they weren't brick, they were wooden.
Maybe. You never know. I mean, he had his pocket oscillator, and he said he could destroy the Empire State Building in a matter of minutes with it. So, maybe. It's hard to say. We have to find people that were there and saw it and wrote about it and recorded it.
Yeah, it's a bit of a shame that we haven't got all this recorded history. Well, maybe it's in the Vatican, but we haven't got it to be able to put all the puzzle together.
Yeah. That's why I tell you, if you ever see any old buildings that are being demolished, go and take pictures of them, as many pictures as you can, inside and out, before they're gone.
Well, do you know what I noticed in London? You can actually see that sometimes what they did was, I don't know whether the building fell down or they took it down, but they leave the first couple of floors there and then they build on top.
Yeah, they do that. They build around them and stuff, too. There's a couple of buildings here that have skyscrapers around them. It's engineering. Well, we can do crazy things. Trust me. I mean, there are people that know how engineering works and how math works and how architecture and all that. These architects some of them are smart. They don't build functioning buildings, but they just build them according to what the client wants. Unfortunately. So hard to say.
So when that guy on the video says, oh, the Tartary in the 1500s, that's wrong.
Hard to say. I don't know. It says no, well, that's 200 years before 300 years before 1800s. What other evidence does he have? Is it just a date? Why does he think that?
Well, it was on my video a bit.
Oh, I didn't see it.
Because what he was doing was in the 1800s. Well, when was Independence Day? 17 something. When was Amy? When was America's independence?
1776, I think.
Yeah, what it was is he looked at the uniforms, and the Americans and the English had practically the same uniforms, same instruments, same everything.
Of course.
So he says, well, they're not fighting each other. They were together. They were fighting the Tartaries.
No. No, they were fighting themselves.
How do we know?
Because we know. I know. Maybe a lot of people don't really think that it was Confederates against the Democrats, but no, they were fighting themselves, and you just proved it because the Tartarians were there already, and so was the Crown. And the Crown never even got involved in any of that shit. So the Revolution, the American Revolution, was the time when the Americans fought back and got rid of the Crown, and then they split up into the Federalists and the Democrats, and then they had a civil war later on, and that's when the Crown took the country back during the Civil War.
We also said, though, that it is very strange that you've got the Ottoman Empire, which is supposed to have been decades and decades of rule, at the same time as Tartary, and yet they're the same people, just different tribes in the same people.
Right.
And then you've got the same buildings, like that palace in Brighton looks pretty much like the ones in Russia. Even though I said that they're Muslim, they look pretty much the same.
It's Middle Eastern. Looks like the Shriner's hat. Yeah. Yep. It's because it's all Semitic. Christianity is Semitic. So anywhere where you see a cross or a fleur-de-lis or anything like that, it's all Christian. It's all Semitic. It's all from the Middle East. Jerusalem.
Also, we were talking last night, Amy, about the fact that a lot of the people came from Prussia, and basically, I think it was New Zealand. She's a Maori, and basically, she always wanted to know because there were some of the Maoris with her that had ginger hair and blue eyes, which is different to the rest of the Maoris who've got brown eyes and dark hair. But when they did her bloodline, she came from Persia. Which isn't even a country anymore, is it? They've renamed it something.
Iran. I think they call it Iran now.
Oh, right. Right, okay, yeah.
Oh, you know what? So I looked up the Maoris, and the Maoris and the Moors are the same people. It's just a different word. The Maoris actually come from the Moors. The Moors were first. It says right here, Maori, which is derived from the English term Moor, was the Latin designation for a Berber. So the Berbers were also the same people as the Maoris, and the Mauritanians as well. And they were from Numidia and Morocco and Algeria as well, all the Maoris and the Moors. So they're black people. They were nobles, and they had their own little civilization, yeah.
Well, yeah, because there's certain parts of our history where these people are wearing crowns and things, so they were privileged or further up the system.
This all has timeline on it, too. You should always go to Wikipedia just for the official story first. Then you can get the official story, and then you can work out some of the other rumors and stuff like that. But because you don't have to believe everything on Wikipedia, obviously. Wikipedia may be telling you something that's not true, but you should read it anyway just to see what it says, because you might get an idea of timeline. What other
Thanks, Jeff.
are.
Jeff keeps sending me links. He keeps sending me links.
Well, I checked that one out. I didn't know that. I didn't know. So I had a funny feeling that the Moors and the Maori were going to connect, and they do. They're the same sort of people.
So they did her lineage. They said she originally had come from Prussia.
Well, it looks like they're Aryans.
So what's not Aryan then?
Aryans. Have you ever seen flag of Israel.
Mm-hmm.
So it has that star on it.
Yeah.
That's probably going to be a lot about Aryans and that symbol of the star. I'll send you the seal right now. And this is largely Semitic. And it has a lot to do with Christianity and Judaism and Allah and Islam and all this. This one symbol is just a huge symbol. And it's actually on this particular one that I'm going to send you right now is actually on the front of the old Toronto City Hall. The old building that they had City Hall in Toronto when they first made it. They don't use it as that anymore. It's not City Hall anymore. The Seal of Solomon. And so this marks a time period in Jerusalem again.
Thank you.
Temple. So if you learn about Solomon and all this, then you can get more ideas on it. But like you said, there's always more, and it always takes so long to learn these damn things, but you got to do it.
I feel a bit tired now because I haven't slept. I had to burn the candles at both ends.
Right. No.
We can talk for a few more minutes, but I'm just saying I feel really tired suddenly because I've sat down now, I think.
Right.
Yes.
No,
Sorry?
I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know. I might just watch a Hollywood movie or something tonight, or I don't know.
You want to be lightheaded?
Yeah.
So, do your family follow you then?
No. No, I don't have any brothers or sisters, and my mother's the only one left. My dad died, and I have some cousins and stuff around, but I don't see them anymore much. They're all out in different parts of the world.
I'm being really rude here, Jeff. You got any kids?
No.
Right. So have you always lived where you are in Canada then, or have you just moved there?
No, I've always lived in Canada, Toronto.
Yeah, I should add you to that group where Tommy is, because he's there, isn't he, Amy?
That's right. He's in Canada.
Yeah, he's in Toronto, isn't he?
Yeah, Toronto, yes.
Yeah, he might be just someone to go for a coffee every now and again.
Mm-hmm.
He was filming stuff in Toronto with the Griffins.
Oh, yeah?
It's a castle, but it was kind of... He went right at the beginning when the COVID thing came in, and it was basically all shut up and you could only walk around the grounds. But he took pictures and video up there because I put it on my channel.
Huh. Yeah, well, there are a few people around in Toronto that search for this kind of stuff. There's Tartarian evidence in Toronto as well. They'll make reference to Tartarian Empire once in a while.
Yeah. So I tell you something else. I was really bad. I taped it. I'm a bit naughty like that, but I didn't want to say anything because I wanted Jeff just to be natural. And yeah, and he started talking. I didn't tape all of it. I just taped some of it because I thought, God, she's really going for it now.
Oh no.
I'm a bit bad like that. I sometimes say that, don't I, Amy? I don't tape everything, by the way. I don't. Oh, there comes someone. I must tape it. But occasionally, I have done it because it covers our backs when people lie.
Yeah.
I'm not saying. I'm not talking about you, Jeff. I just mean we have in the past because people lie.
Yeah, no, I agree. The problem, here's the thing that, you never want to talk to the police. That's the problem. Never talk to the police. Don't let them know what you're saying, because they will turn your words around. They will find a law to incriminate you on.
I find that strange because the police should be living or working under common law, and they're promoting corporate law.
Yeah. It's commerce. That's what it's all about.
Everything's twisted back on the humans, isn't it?
Religion.
Anyway, our Queen's done a walkabout at the moment. No one knows where she is. And all you've got is these virtual reality videos where... Does Prince Charles look like Prince Charles, Amy?
No, he looks different.
Maybe the Queen died. She's pretty old,
Well, I told you that you know, when I went up to London, I could see all the windows were blanked out. But then I watched this film, and what was that person that looks like Ellen DeGeneres, Amy? Do you remember we looked at it?
From the Brady Bunch.
Mm.
That one, Karen.
The blonde guy. They said that she's supposed to be that actor. Yeah.
Owen Wilson.
Well, he was making a film when he was outside Buckingham Palace. I went, Amy, the windows are blanked out. And he made that film in 2003, so maybe we didn't notice that the windows had been blanked out for a long time.
Right, that's true.
It's hard to tell because you only see little bits of everything all the time, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, he's gone all quiet now. I've told him I was recording.
You're listening.
You're listening. Oh, Jeff. Jeff, he's nice, isn't he, Jeff? Amy?
Yes, very nice.
Me and Amy talk to so many people. We get a general feeling about how we feel that person is. And I feel that you've got a really nice energy, Jeff.
Yes, me too. I agree.
And if I had to say, if I didn't say it was Jeff, who does Jeff sound like, Amy? Do you know someone he sounds like?
Claudio?
No, Josh. Josh Stone.
Oh, okay. Claudio's from Canada, though, and I wonder I might have thought Claudio.
Yeah, Claudio comes on our hangouts. He's more into the stars and etymology and yourself. But Josh Stone, where does Josh live? He lives in, he doesn't live in New York. He lives,
I forgot, somewhere.
Yeah, I've forgotten as well. He's up that part of America.
Yeah.
And he likes the free energy, and he sees that most of life's a vampire, and he makes songs. But you sound like him.
Yes, now that you mention it.
Yeah, see, I didn't want to say anything. If I didn't know better, because I've seen Josh, so I know he's not Josh. But you sound like Josh. See, we're all each other, really.
Yes.
Yeah. We're all human. We all assume our own roles, though. We are different, but we're the same. Same, only different.
Yes.
I still have this problem, like I told you, with those Barbary ships at the same time that we're conquering the world, and yet the Barbary ships are taking everybody. I just don't see how it all fits in right. And then it's a bit like, how did we not have this in our history books? How come we're only learning about it now? Probably like the Tartary.
Some people know, trust me, the nobles know. The royals teach themselves, and the families pass it down. And so the nobles, the one who are educated, their kids get to know, and the people who are not educated, their kids don't get to know. And then that population gets bigger, and they don't know, and the royals stay small, and they all know the truth. And then they get this control back when they bring in the dragon.
So where did these Tartaries come from then? Are they just armies? You know, you've got the Russian, you've got the
just people.
The one from Turkey, can't think of its name now, and you said the Mongolians. Was it just bunches of warring people?
Well, if let's say the Queen is in England, and then she's got her princes, maybe Prince Charles wants to leave. And so Prince Charles goes over and lives in Canada, and he has a couple of mistresses, and he pops some genes into them, and then they go have kids with some other people. Well, they have the genes now of the royals. That's how the genes get spread, right? And maybe Prince Charles goes over with the Duke and the Baron and 100 more people, and they all screw around with other people, and that's how the genes get spread.
Was it last night when we were talking? I can't remember if it was a conversation we've had, or I've had it with someone else now, where when they got married, then all the higher people used to sleep with the wife. Was that you?
No, but that's probable. Yeah. And arranged marriages they have and all this kind of stuff. But in some religions, you're not allowed to get divorced either, so you have to stay with the same person. Other religions, you're not supposed to stay with the same person. So it all depends on what your religion's telling you. And what the royals
But even then,
allow.
there's so many of those as well. What a crazy time. I'd love to see a film going backwards and seeing what really happened.
A lot of people, they don't want to find out the truth for themselves. They want to be told what it is, and then they just want to push the button to make things go.
Do you think a lot of it was written for us, though? You know, they changed the history. They did it for us, so things could have happened differently anyway because they rewrote it for us.
Right, yes, and themselves mostly. But they all think that they tell themselves from their religion that this is God's work and this is how the world is supposed to be. We were born to rule over these people, and we were born to be the boss, and they were born to be the slaves, which is not true. We were all sort of born to be equal, but they think these elitists, these elite people, think that they are so smart and they have the world on and they deserve to be the royals, and so they don't tell people what the truth is, and they never learn, they never get smarter. And they can't be royals unless they're smart. And the royals will lie, and they will cheat, and they will hide things from you, and that's how they keep their wealth and power.
Yeah, a bit annoying that we can't just go, this is what really happened. It started here, and then there's Tartary, and then there's Queen Victoria, and then and we could carry it on, but we can't quite, can we still? Even though we're 2020.
Yeah. Well, like if a king came along and he said he wanted to take over those people over there, and I'm a Tartarian, and I want to take over the Russians or whatever, and I can tell my people that the Russians are bad and they're going to come and kill us. And I can get my baron, I'm looking for a baron or a prince, and you come along and you say, I don't want to go and kill those people. And I say, okay, then you're not the baron. You're not going to be my number one guy. You're going to be a soldier. And I go and I say, Karen or somebody else there says, well, I'll go and kill those Russians for you. And then you say, okay, well, you can be the baron. You can be in charge for me. I'm the king. You're the baron now. And you over there that didn't want to kill the people, well, you're a soldier now, and you have to go kill those people anyway, because I said so. And if you don't, then they're going to come and kill you anyway. And this is how it went. This is basically how they got soldiers to fight. Threats. Threaten their life.
Yeah. How would they have done it in those days, though? Because now we've got telephones, or we can fly there fairly quickly, but in those days they had to go on horseback or boats.
Yeah. And that's where the Aryans come in, because the Aryans were the ones who introduced horses to a lot of these cultures, and chariots and stuff like that. And you can see the results. You can see how these cultures had no horses until the Aryans actually got there. And then all of a sudden they have all these symbols of chariots with horses and all that in their heraldry.
Yeah. Nothing quite adds up, though, does it?
Yeah, well, this kind of does, because you can see clearly now that, like, in New Zealand, there was no horses there for hundreds and thousands of years in their culture, and then the Aryans came down on their horses from the Middle East with their chariots, and then all of a sudden there's pictures of horses in New Zealand with chariots and all that, and it all comes from the Middle East. That's how we nail it down. But, science will say, oh, they could have come from anywhere. No, they couldn't. They came with Aryans. Because Aryans were already using them, and the Romans were using them, and stuff like that. So that's how we know. Romans definitely had chariots from the Middle East. We know that, and they rode chariots. They had chariot racing in the arena, and then that all came from the Middle East with the Aryans, and the Byzantines were also Romans.
I don't know if you saw this film, but it was about 2003, and it's an English film, but it showed that Arthur was a slave of the Romans. They had to do, it might have been 15 years or 7 years, but they had to be their slave, soldiers. And once you've done your time, then you could go and live your life.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure everybody still, all the men born in Israel have to spend a certain amount of time in the army too. It's mandatory. By a certain age, by like 18 or something, you have to do your year in the army, or 2 years or something like that. And they don't treat you well in the Army over there at all. Not a bit. They're just treated like pieces of shit.
That's not good then, is it?
My ex-girlfriend's nephew used to live there, and he was in the Army, and he used to tell me some stories about how he had to break his own foot by kicking this log. And they made him kick the log and keep kicking it and keep kicking it and keep kicking it until he broke his foot. And then he had to kick it some more and keep kicking it with a broken foot. And his foot got all mangled and everything, but that was part of his training for the Army.
Oh, it's awful.
Yeah.
It is, yeah. Awful.
So, yeah.
It's hard. It just baffles me. I can't see the puzzle made.
It's religion.
Oh, that's just, yeah. Sorry, Amy.
Semitic.
Amy's a bit more into the Bible, aren't you, and Jesus? But I'm not. So many books are missing.
Well, the Bible, I have some Christian friends as well, and my ex-girlfriend was a Jehovah's Witness, and I learned a lot about true Christianity from her mother, who was a witness. And you just get different perspectives on religion. But if you study theology is the study of all religions. So then you're not stuck in this one book, and you can get a better idea of what Christianity is, and what Hinduism is, and what Buddha, and what Jainism is, and all this other stuff. And the occult, because all religion involves the occult, all of it.
No, yeah, well, I just follow Jesus. I'm not a Jehovah's Witness. I just love Jesus. I'm born again Christian. I've always been, and I don't force that on anybody else. I invite them. I think it's would help people to follow the Lord, but that's personal. I never force it on people. But I'm certainly glad to invite people if they want to know more. I would share my testimony, but I'm not gonna, force it or anything. Try to be respectful.
Let me ask you this, though. Do you ever question your own beliefs in that?
I just always disbelieved. I was just brought up in it, and I just believe, and I've just Jesus has helped me with everything. It's just a personal thing.
You might want to question yourself.
That's right? My testimony, but like I said, I don't want to come across as a preacher or force, any views. But if anybody ever wanted to know, I'd be more than happy to share. But I just love Jesus, and it's just the one thing I always just cling to. It kind of has got me through my life, is my belief in Him.
Okay.
And that's just the way I see it. But, everybody has to follow their own path and everything. So I'm just respectful to whatever other people, believe in as well. But my faith is pretty solid, and it's been rocked many a times. I've been through some horrible experiences, but I just cling to Him, and he kind of pulls me through. So that's just my story.
Absolutely,
but I love all people, and I love to hear everybody's opinion. But I just love all of the people.
Right. I advise people to look deeper into their faith, to be honest with you, because I think there's somewhere else after religion, after the understanding of the Bible. You can take that further. So by sort of looking at one book, I think people limit themselves. And I just offer somewhere else some additions. I don't ask people to say, I don't tell people, definitely not, I don't tell people that they cannot follow a religion. But I offer them something else to add to their religion as well, just to make it more, to make the faith a little bit stronger sometimes, maybe a little bit more available to.
Yes. Right, I agree. Yes, that's right. I
Well, I
agree
sent
with
you
that.
something about a
Yes.
deity. I sent something to Karen about a deity called El, and you can look at it. It says the deity called El in Wikipedia, and you can read that. It's very interesting for Christianity, for sure.
Yes, I always thought that meant God in the highest in the Hebrew, but I'm not sure. El. Elion is God in the highest, I know, in the Hebrew.
Saturn. Yeah, Saturn. El was Saturn, and Jehovah was El.
Okay.
Yeshua, Allah, it's all the same planet, Saturn.
Right. Yes.
Do you think the pyramids line up with the stars then?
They do. Well, they line up with the true north, is what they line up with. And so does there's stuff like the Georgia Guidestones that line up.
But they've only been there since the 1980s.
Yeah, I know, but it has stuff that lines up in like this winged disc format and stuff. So it's kind of like matches with the Palace of Alexandria.
Oh yeah, you were talking about that. Oh, you're on my iPad and I've got Amy on my phone. I'm gonna remind me to look up at the Palace of Alexandria. So it's in England then, because obviously we had Crystal Palace. That was glass. They knocked that down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's probably because the Tartaries built that one.
Still there.
Right. Is it a church? Just asking.
No, it's different things now. They've built other things. There's a bar and a restaurant there called the Phoenix as well.
Right. I'll look that up. So what was your point of that one then?
It has a lot to do with Nibiru and this sort of religious...
Oh, that's not real though, Nibiru. That's been coming in since 2013. I remember this friend of mine was so into it, and that's when I got into Flat Earth. She went to debunk that, and I went to debunk Flat Earth, and it was like, it's real. And she wouldn't come out with whether Nibiru was real or not, but it had been coming in for about, that was about 2016. It had been coming in for about 3 or 4 years. But you see, we're not floating through space, so it's not coming in like that.
It's all religion.
Right, yeah.
It's just religious beliefs. And that's what mythology is, too, is religion. It was pagan religions were just, they weren't called pagan before. Pagan is a word that just means non-Christian. And so if something was around as a religion before Christianity, then by default it's pagan, just because there was no Christianity. That's the word we attach to it, but it was just religion is what it was, and now we call some of it mythology. But Buddha and Hindu are pagan religions. First Nations, Indians, they're pagan religion as well. But still, it's just religion.
Well, I've really enjoyed this talk, haven't you, Amy?
I have, very much, yes.
He doesn't just talk Tartary either. Well, last night we were talking about all sorts of things.
Right.
Yeah.
I was really miffed because my iPad has this screen on it, which I can take the screen, so it doesn't matter if I'm talking or you're talking. But for some reason, it just didn't pick you up at all. Not at all.
Oh.
So let's, say I uploaded it and I hadn't noticed, people would have thought I was mad and talking to myself. Because there was none of you in it. So I'm going, oh, do you really think that then?
Oh.
I'm not mad, am I, Amy?
What's that?
I'm not mad, am I?
No, not at all. But that's frustrating when you had a good conversation and it.
Yeah, because Jeff was really tired at the end of it. Like, can we stop now? 'Cause I don't know what time it was, and it was even later for me. But
right.
Like 2:60.
What's that? Sorry, Jeff?
Oh, I didn't say anything. I was just looking at this here. I'm going to send you one more thing. This guy's a bit of a kook, though. You might listen to it because it's about the Alexandra Palace.
Oh, thank you. Well, now you know I've recorded it. I'll have to put all the links that you've given me in the description. I see. We're a group, right? Amy and Gillian help me the most. I suppose it's a ladies' group, isn't it now, Amy?
Yeah, yes, it's become a ladies' group.
Yeah, it's a ladies' group. But we talk to lots of different people, and I like talking to the people, and the people talking to us about their experiences or their history.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, the time when we didn't record history at all, and we just did it all by word of mouth, to tell you the truth, in Hindu and stuff like that. So, yeah, that's how we do it. It just all depends. See, the thing is, when I talk about truth too, what the truth is, what is the definition of truth? People used to ask me, well, what is truth? What is the truth then? And I said, well, the truth all depends. There's one truth for every single situation, but there's only one. So it doesn't matter what your point of view is, you have to find what the truth. So even if you were there, you could look at it and say, well, I saw this bird, and the bird had some orange feathers. And somebody else could say, well, I was on the other side of the bird, and that bird had a yellow beak, and it had some yellow feathers on the top of its eyes. But nobody can ever come in and say, well, I was standing over on the other side, and I saw an elephant. Because it wasn't a fucking elephant. It was a bird. Sure, it had yellow beak, whatever. Maybe it had an orange beak, so they were wrong. I don't know, but it was not an elephant, and that's not the truth. So it doesn't matter what your point of view is. The truth is that it was a bird. You understand that? Because you can't just make the truth up and say, well,
but that's if you believe the timelines they've given us, and we've found that history is a lie.
Well, yeah, you have to confirm it, though. You can't just go by what you're told.
Sorry, everybody. I'm eating sweeties. I'm sorry. I think that's what Scott's kept me awake. Is the sweeties.
Yeah.
Beliefs are beliefs. That's all they are. I try not to hold them. If I don't believe something, then I don't believe it either. If I either believe it or not, or I know that it's true. If I still believe something, I'm still trying to find out that it's true. I don't just leave it and say, oh, that's what I believe. I'm like, is it true or not? I believe it, but is it true? Is it true? Yeah, I believe, but I don't know that it's true or not.
Well, Jeff came to me after watching the Was USA Tartary. So I do appreciate that you did, and I appreciate this whole thing that you're doing. Is it for yourself, or is it because you like helping teach other people?
Everything, yeah, it's a bit of both. If you study, that's what anthropologists do. You know, we try and help understanding things so that we get it right instead of believing things that are just not true. Yeah. So anyway.
Yeah. Anyway, should I well, I'm still recording. I'm gonna turn it off now. Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Jeff. Jeff. Don't go for a minute. I'm just going to turn the recording off. But for everybody now, we're having a private party now. Anyway, thank you so much for that, Jeff, Amy.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.